Hello and welcome back to Dinks with Debt. My name is Andrea, my husband's name is Anthony, and we are a double income no kids family on a journey to get our finances under control and tackle our consumer debt. Now, I wanted to share an update based on where I left last time. We had made it through week 1, 2, and 3. And at the end of week 3, I noticed that what I had on my budget sheets wasn't matching up with what was in our account. So I do want to say thank you to everyone because you all encouraged me to watch some videos about how to reconcile accounts and how to, perform an audit basically on your personal checking account. And I watched countless videos about how to do those things and basically kind of matched up what the bank account had, our transaction summary or statement of the account, as well as my tracking sheets. And I realized that those things weren't actually matching up. So there's a couple of reasons why, things weren't exactly matching up. And the first reason is that when I created our January budget, I assumed that we were starting with an account balance of 0. And when I went through, line by line, I started with January 1st and realized, wait a second, we have some money, that rolled over from December. And so we started January 1st with a balance of $294.83. So starting here, that would impact our, essentially our income that I based everything on for the month. So the other thing that I realized is that there's a processing time for, point of sale purchases, or if you go out to eat at a restaurant and you purchase essentially the food and then leave a tip, there's still some additional processing with that vendor or merchant that it's going to take a couple of days to process before it hits your bank account. And so that was one of the other things that I found, was kind of a little frustrating because I'm trying to close out our weekly budget and I've accounted for all the things that we've spent over the course of that week. But if we went out to eat, for example, on the 7th or the 8th, that final, total bill wouldn't be processed for another couple of days, which meant that this balance was wrong. And what I was starting with here wasn't accurately reflecting what was actually in the account at that time. Now, the expenses and the purchases and things like that eventually do catch up. But that was one of the things that, was frustrating to me, that when I checked the account and what I had, week over week wasn't matching what was in the account at that time. And so that, has kind of helped me to, I guess, put to bed some of the fears that I had that I was doing this wrong or, that we were just spending way more money or something than we were tracking. And that actually isn't the case. One thing that I did discover, though, in the course of the audit was that we didn't notice that we had a credit. So we had been overcharged a copay, and they took that copay out twice, and then they refunded that money. And so that happened back in December, but it hit our account in early January. And what else happened? I did discover also that my student loan didn't get processed and get taken out of our account. So I'll walk you through the corrected amounts that I found for, weeks 1, 2, and 3. Starting with week 1, which was January 1st through 8th, I already mentioned that we started with $294.83. So our income total didn't include that rollover amount from December 2024. And so this amount was already off by nearly $300. Now, the other thing that you don't see here is that our expenses start with January 1st, but we still had some expenses rolling in from the end of December. So we had some December purchases that totaled $25.18 that, continued coming out in the first couple of days. And then over the course of the week, all of our final purchases came out for a total of $106.93. And so those aren't reflected here, but they were part of, the carryover from the end of December. So after making those adjustments and verifying that all the expenses we were tracking, did actually come out of our account and were reflected on our statement, our adjusted or corrected ending balance on January 8th, 2025 was $2,560.34. Now, of course, that means that the rollover amount from week 1 to week 2 was incorrect. And so instead of $22.69.92, the rollover amount should have been $2,560.34. And so that impacted the income total that we were working with over the course of week 2. Now, if you'll remember, in week 2, we had an unplanned road trip that we took to attend a family funeral out of town. And so we were shuffling money back from savings and emergency savings to cover these expenses. The other thing was we had overspent in our lunch categories. Essentially, I had used our checking account instead of my lunch account. And so I wanted to make sure that I sent the money back from my lunch account back to our main checking account so that it wouldn't negatively impact our balance there. Now, I think in the long run, that's completely fine to send money back and forth if it's needed in order to reconcile those charges. Now that I understand, the delay in how those things post to the accounts and things like that, I think I will make some changes to like when the expense happens versus when the money is sent over. But it all kind of hinges on making sure that, at least for me, what I feel like would be helpful is that, for example, for the lunches, I spent out of the wrong account twice for $6.92. And then the second, instance that I did that was for $12.86. So rather than sending $6.92 back from my lunch account back into our main account, and then sending another $12.86, to cover the second charge, I added those together and sent them as $19.78. And I think just for my, brain and the way it works, I think I just need to send the individual amounts rather than adding them up and sending one lump sum. That really came into play, for the road trip and the concert tickets that we had purchased back in, or agreed to purchase back in December before we were doing a budget. And what happened, and I'll show you on our tracking sheet. So what happened on our tracking sheet, one, the rollover amount was incorrect. But when we made the corrections for the lunches that I went out and used the wrong account, I sent the lump sum, and we did that for the road trip and then for the tickets. Now, in going line by line, I was able to find out that, one, my student loan actually didn't get drafted out of our account. At the time I tracked it and made the video, this was showing up as a pending draft that was coming out of the account. And when I started digging and doing a little bit more research, I checked my email and had received a letter that went to my junk mail from the Department of Education saying that my student loan payment had been put on pause and they were doing some accounting, whatever, and they were putting my loans on administrative forbearance for another like 6 months or something. So I didn't ask for it. I don't know what kind of accounting they're, doing all of a sudden. But the $142 that had been pending as a draft went away. And so that $142 remains in our account. And so that's something that I'm going to, I do need to, obviously take that out of our account and send it to savings, because I'm sure they're going to want their money at some point. But so I'll go ahead and send that payment to savings until I'm able to make a payment on the account again. Now, the thing I was mentioning about the tickets is that I sent a lump sum of, I think it was $494. So the amount that we sent, and I don't know why we did this, but the amount that we spent for the trip was $419.78. And then the tickets, the concert tickets, were $134. And so I was supposed to have added those up, and it was $500 and something. For some reason, we transferred $494, and that made our account, I guess, short. It wasn't the even transfer that I was wanting to do. And I honestly cannot remember why we didn't do it that way. But what ended up happening was we paid ourselves back only $75.19, and we still needed to transfer $58.81 from savings back into our checking account to pay for that expense. So I found that Anthony had transferred that amount, but it wasn't on the 15th when we were making all of these adjustments. It was actually several days later in week 3. So that was something else that affected the accounting for week 2. The corrected balance for week 2 ended up being $1,779.11. So by the time we get to week 3, I have the same issue of the rollover amount being incorrect, and then that impacts our income total for the rest of the week that we're operating on. But so this is where I really, I guess, kind of discovered that, hey, there's something wrong with the accounting, and I needed to do some investigation. I did go through and just kind of double check all of the purchases and categories and all that kind of stuff. Everything was correct. And if you'll remember, we had some adjustments that we did again, based on a purchase that was made out of the wrong account. Again, a lunch purchase that was made out of the wrong account. And then we decided to donate some of our personal funds. I believe this was out of our lunch accounts, to pay for some times that we ate out with friends and had takeout in preparation for the storm. Now, all of our expenses and everything came out. Again, the rollover was incorrect starting the week, but all the expenses and bills and everything were drafted, with the exception of a copay. And this is, again, just one of those annoying things that I'm just learning, that the date of service was January 21st, but this actually didn't hit our account until several days later when it was processed by the doctor's office. But that takes us right up to the end of week 3. And after reviewing all of the expenses line by line, I did find that this, math from the tracking sheets and everything, it did actually add up to $211.91, which is what I had expected there to be based on this statement. So it didn't match with my math, but there, like I said, there were several reasons for that. But according to all of the expenses and things that were drafted from the account, this is the actual corrected ending balance as of January 22nd. Just wanted to provide an update and let you all know that I did perform the audit of our accounts and verified that everything was what it was supposed to be. It is really encouraging, so I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for offering your kind words and suggestions, and just being so great about this whole process. It has been challenging because we haven't really been disciplined about our spending or any of our financial goals or plans or anything, and that's kind of how we got into this mess. Of utilizing credit cards when we really didn't need to, or we shouldn't have been. But I can say, I think with confidence, both Anthony and myself feel a lot more empowered about our financial decisions because we are communicating more, which is great. And even though you don't see him, on the channel and, on the videos and that kind of thing, we have budget meetings regularly, particularly as we've had so many, I guess, emergencies come up. The level of communication is so much, more, I guess, involved than it has been in the past, like literally over 10 to 12 years. And so, it's not surprising, I guess, that, we have fallen into all of this debt because we weren't communicating about where, what accounts or different things, how we were going to pay for large purchases or emergencies or wants and that kind of thing. We just kind of defaulted to the credit cards and we didn't discuss it. The only rule that we had was that purchases over $100, needed to be run by the other one. And really that is the only rule that we've had, in our finances as we've, dated and been married. It has been a very, I think, humbling experience also, just kind of recognizing, some of the purchases and things that we do, why we spend so much. So I know a lot of people call us out on the food budget and stuff, and we're working on that. But this first month, we're just trying to get our bearings, and I feel like we're headed in the right direction because we're communicating more and we're problem solving together. So this was a great exercise in problem solving, working together to look at the accounts and then go through all the expense tracking and everything like that. So we have worked through that as a team, and I feel like we are headed in the right direction. So all right, well, without further ado, I'm going to sign off, and I hope to provide you with an update of week 4 in the coming days. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.